Chelsea Bennice is a postdoc at Florida Atlantic University. She studies octopus behavior near West Palm Beach. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, what drew you to octopus as a study species?
Right, so I've always been interested in animal behavior and how it relates to the animal's environment. So octopuses are amazing animals and they can incorporate many components like skin color, texture, and posture to produce really complex behaviors. I'm interested in understanding these complex behaviors. Also, through my research, I've discovered that octopuses, they also played a very important role in many marine food webs. And this can be as a predator and also a prey item. So it's important to understand octopus behavioral ecology for marine conservation purposes.
Okay, that makes sense. That's very cool. Now, how many different species of octopus are present at your study site?
So at my study site right now, we know of 5 different octopus species that you can see. However, there might be more. And so I'm going to quickly share my screen so I
Yeah.
can show you guys what the different species are and what they look like. First up, you should be able to see the Caribbean reef octopus, and in parentheses is the scientific name Octopus briareus. And this octopus comes out really late at night. Usually you'll only see this octopus out foraging, what it's doing right now, foraging on the substrate. Only see it out foraging during like 9 or 10 p.m. at night or even later. And so one of the distinct characteristics or features of this octopus is this bluish, greenish, like iridescent on the head right here by the eyes and the mantle. And you can also see it in the arms and the arm webbing. Next, we've got the brown striped octopus. And so this is similar to the common octopus I'll show you in a little bit. However, the big differences between the common octopus and the brown striped octopus is that the brown striped octopus has kind of this grainy or granule texture in the back by its mantle and also in its arms. And the reason they call it the brown striped octopus is that it has these long longitudinal stripes down each arm. So normally if the octopus was camouflaged, you wouldn't see this. However, this is a threat or startle display. We call it a dematic behavior that the octopus is doing to maybe scare off a potential predator. So it's putting on this display. You see this nice long arm bar and these stripes.
That's a gorgeous pattern.
Yeah, it's really pretty. The third octopus we have is the Caribbean two-spot octopus. So usually you see in these common names that helps you identify what species of octopus it is. And I've kind of put up a circle right there. You'll see there's one spot, it acts as a false eye spot, and you know that other animals, like the butterfly fish, also have false eye spots to kind of deter the predator from potentially eating it, maybe eating its tail and not necessarily the entire body of the animal, so the animal can survive. Yeah. So we've got that false eye spot on one side, and then here's another photo of the animal and kind of right here on the other side. So this is just for the other species at my study location known as Blue Heron Bridge. They do not have these false eye spots like this Caribbean two-spot does. So that's a nice defined characteristic. And also this is a very small species of octopus. Its mantle length right here, that sac in the back is known as the mantle. And it's probably only an inch or two long. So
wow.
Very, very small species. This was definitely a close-up macro photography shot.
So when I've seen one before at the bridge in the neck of a beer bottle, that might have been what it was, because tiny.
Possibly. It starts to get confusing because we have different ages of octopuses there. So we'll have juvenile octopus, I call them teenage octopus, and then the adult octopus. So all of those octopuses at different age stages can be at the bridge. So commonly when you see an octopus in a structure like that, it may have been a cement block or a beer bottle or can, it's probably the common octopus. Not to say it was a different one, but those are usually the ones that you typically see, and that'll be the next species that I'll talk about. So
Okay.
before we get to that common octopus, we've got the Atlantic longarm octopus, and this is one of my study animals that's definitely abundant at the bridge in the sandy environment. So you can kind of see here, sandy plain, and here's this octopus that makes its home or its den out of the sand. And so it has, just like its common name, super long arms. So the ML means mantle length. I'm showing you right here. It's about, adult sizes is 2 inches long. So again, a relatively small octopus, about 2 inches long, and its arms are 6 to 8 times its mantle length. So they can be
Wow.
really long. You see right here, it's trying to wrap its entire arms around its body.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so last up to cover the 5 is the common octopus that I've been talking about. And so, like its name, it's probably the octopus if you're in South Florida diving on a reef, or at Blue Heron Bridge in Lake Worth Lagoon. You're probably going to see this octopus if you are around somewhere with structure. So
Okay. Yeah.
as you see, this octopus has more robust arms than the Atlantic longarm that I just talked about. Very similar to the brown stripe, however, it doesn't have those stripes going down its arm. Usually has this reddish brown color pattern, but
Mm-hmm.
depending on the background that it's in, you see the sandy environment, it can be almost like a pale uniform color pattern. So that's a little bit of information about the 5 different species in the Lake Worth Lagoon. But my research focuses on the common octopus right here, and also the Atlantic longarm octopus.
Okay. Okay. Now, that's a fairly small space, a small study site. Do you see them doing any type of niche separation to share the habitat? Uh,
Yeah, so that was the focus of my PhD research, looking at how these 2 species can coexist, and I call them underwater neighbors, how they can coexist in such this small or confined area without competing for resources. And so I'm going to kind of show you the map of the study site, and I'm going to explain it a little bit more. Let me get this started. All right. Give me 1 second.
okay.
There we go. All right, kind of back where we started. So here's the big question I just mentioned. I've got these 2 species, underwater neighbors, and I wanted to know, well, how are they living really close to each other and not competing for resources? So to answer this big research question of coexistence, what scientists do, or what I did, is you break this up into specific questions. And so I asked for each species, what types of resources are they using? Are they using the same resources, or are they using different resources and partitioning those resources? So like you mentioned, where do they live? Are they living in exactly the same area? So their spatial distribution, are they there year round? Maybe they're coming to Blue Heron Bridge at different times, and that's how they're avoiding interactions with each other. Also, what do their homes look like? So I maybe gave it away from the photos a little bit, but also looking at the dens or their microhabitats that each species lives in and makes its home. When are they active? So these are all different types of niche partitioning mechanisms that I'm kind of listing off. So when are they active would answer, if they're active at different times of the day, that would mean they're using temporal partitioning. One might be out foraging during the daytime, while the other one forages during the nighttime, so they avoid each other. And also, what do they eat? Are they eating the same things, or are they using diet partitioning to coexist? And lastly, where and how do they eat? So I answered all these questions over several years about these 2 species, since they live so close together. So to kind of get back at the study site, so this is, as you can see in the star right here, South Florida, like you mentioned, really close to West Palm Beach. It's about, from West Palm, maybe like a 15-minute drive to Blue Heron Bridge. And you can see why we just call it Blue Heron Bridge is you get off the Blue Heron Bridge exit, you drive east, you park inside this park called Phil Foster Park, and it's a really easy dive, and it's a very popular dive site because it's shallow, warm water, clear water, and so a lot of divers, and of course I like to do my research there because it's a great biodiversity. There's a lot of animals there. I'm focusing on the octopus. So if you look at this outlined area, this is what I called my study site, and this is where I looked for all the octopuses inside this solid white line. So if you were to swim this solid white line, it would be about a mile swim, just to give you an idea of how big the area we're talking about. So not relatively big. However, there's a lot of octopus here, which brings it back to the question, well, how are they not fighting with each other for resources? So basically what I did for my research is I did a lot of scuba diving. I swam up and down, as you saw the little animation, that's me swimming all up and down southwest area of my study site, the south area, and the southeast area, looking for these octopuses, answering those questions that I just told you about.
Now, can you describe Blue Heron Bridge a little bit more? What type of depth profile are we looking at? You said it's a shallow site.
Blue Heron Bridge, I'd say the average depth there is around about 10 feet. Average depth's about 10 feet, and it gets a little bit deeper on each side of the bridge. You can kind of tell in the photo the different types of habitat or substrate at Blue Heron Bridge. All right. So we call this area right through here, this is the sandy environment. And so this average depth through this area is about, I'd say about 8 feet deep, 8 to 10 feet. And as you swim over to the east side of the bridge, it starts to get a little bit deeper by the boats, and also when you go on the other side of the bridge. The deepest depth I'd say is around 20 feet. So still very, very shallow. However, as you approach this side, the substrate changes. So it's a very patchy environment. You can see there's a lot of rock, rubble, and there starts to be more structure on the east side of the bridge as well as the west side of the bridge. And the west side of the bridge also gets a little bit deeper. I'd say 16 to 18 feet. And has that rubble structure and shells over here versus the sandy habitat. And what's also cool about Blue Heron Bridge, to increase its biodiversity, it has a lot of artificial reefs, a lot of artificial reef structures. You might be able to see by all these tiny little dots I'm trying to point out with my cursor. Yep. Those are different artificial reefs that have been put down over time to attract, it can be soft corals, sponge, in return that's attracting different types of fish to the area. And they've recently added more artificial reefs that kind of join this what they call the snorkel trail. So it's a very popular site since it's shallow for people to snorkel in. So you can follow those artificial reefs all the way as you go in. If you follow my cursor down and back, there's small sunken boats on this side where I'm circling, this side, and also over here there's structure. So we like to call Blue Heron Bridge a muck dive. As I've described, there's a lot of sand, rock, rubble, and artificial structure. It may not be that pretty coral reef, that picture that you have in your head or that's behind me on the screen. However, there are a lot of amazing animals that use this habitat, and they call it their home.
How much interaction do you see between, say, the different types of octopus or like a sharp-tailed eel and octopus?
Yeah, so since I went through and I looked at the different types of resources that the octopuses use, I know that they forage at different times of the day. So they have different activity periods. They're eating different things. Their homes are in different types of substrate. The common octopus is living in rock and rubble area, while the Atlantic longarm is living in a sandy environment. So that's helping them kind of partition their environments and lessen those competitive interactions. I still do see those interactions within species. So I have seen a common octopus interact with another common. I've also seen interspecies interaction, so a common with an Atlantic. It's not common because they try to partition the resources, like being active at different times of the day. But it still happens, and it happens more often during the springtime because that's when there is a higher abundance of these species there. I think this is
Okay.
definitely a nursery ground, a recruitment area. A lot of the octopuses that I've observed are juveniles. So we see all these juvenile octopus pop up during the springtime. So if there's a lot of octopuses there, just as if there's a lot of people in a certain area, you may bump into or come into contact with more individuals if there's more there. And so to give you an idea of what these interactions look like, I'm going to give you a couple really cool videos. First, I'm going to describe how I was able to capture these videos. So this was one of the tools that I used for my research, and to capture a lot of information about animal behavior, I use a lot of still photos and a lot of videography. So I use cameras to capture information about the substrates that they use, their foraging behaviors I looked at, and then I also developed this 24-hour monitoring camera. So what this does is it answered the question of what is the octopus doing, or when is its activity period during the 24-hour time. I don't want to be diving at 3 a.m. in the morning checking on an octopus. So luckily I was able to get a 24-hour camera to record for me. I would pick up the camera after 24 hours of underwater, and then I would review it. And so this was great for capturing not only when the octopus is active, but also any interactions that are going on underwater. Since we're talking about interactions, I was able to capture, this is an interaction between two common octopus, right here, and you can see one's in its den, another one comes over. Aggressive behavior. And here's another one. This is male aggression. So as you can see, this male actually was mating with a female over in the corner and jumped off to say, hey male, like back off, that's my lady. However, the male didn't really take it into consideration, said, I'm gonna try anyway. And so usually octopuses live alone, so when they do encounter each other, when they do see each other, it's a mating opportunity. And so if a male sees a female, he's going to try to mate with her. You see another more aggressive behavior going on. There's a quick fight between the males. One male leaves.
Wow.
And then the male goes back and continues mating with his female octopus. So you can tell the difference. Usually for octopus species, there's no sexual dimorphism. They look the same, as you can see right here. However, you can, if you get a close look at the third right arm on a male, it's different than the female octopus. It's modified to pass the packet of sperm to the female. So you can tell, we call it the hectocotylus, or hectocotylized arm. You can see that third arm is reaching inside the female's mantle to deposit that sperm packet. So right there, I can tell the difference. However, if they were separated, I would not be able to tell the difference unless I got a close look at that third right arm groove.
Okay.
We saw different interactions, aggressive behavior going on when you see there's lots of octopus in the area. There was, in that first video, I call it a den takeover. One octopus kicked out the other one. We also see this in the Atlantic longarm. You can see here kind of different environment, cruising around during the daytime, foraging along that sandy bottom. And then you see all of a sudden, there's a beeline from another octopus. And usually when they see each other, they will just straight beeline for that octopus. Usually do a quick fight, we call it a grapple or a fight, and then they'll usually be on their way unless it's a male and female, then they may try to mate. And again, this video ended with a den takeover. And so in higher abundance, we're seeing more interactions, and I'm also seeing these den takeovers. Octopus kicking another one out. I've also seen the Atlantic longarm kick out I think it was either a blenny or a goby. They also have their homes in the sand. And
Okay.
so it kicked the fish out of its den and took over the den. So that was interesting to see. I always say these are really small octopus, but they're very, very strong, and they will take over. And so
Okay.
those are the interactions between within the species. So those are more common. And I'm gonna skip that. Those are more common than the interactions between species. So this is a common octopus,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually was inside its den right here, and it wasn't out during the daytime. However, the Atlantic longarm octopus was out during daytime, and this octopus was foraging, I guess, maybe a little too close to the common octopus's den. So the common octopus decided to leave, put on this threat or startle display, that wide arm webbing, and the Atlantic longarm, you see, kind of as a startle at first, but then leaves, continues foraging. The common octopus goes back to its den. So you can kind of see it. There may be some territorial displays going on, not exactly sure yet. What's also really cool is that usually, I mentioned earlier that octopuses usually, they don't live in groups, they live alone. However, during this time at Blue Heron Bridge, where there's so many in close quarters, they'll start to use tactile communication. So an octopus can recognize just visually that, oh, there's another octopus over there, and may swim towards it and check it out. However, it's not until they use chemotactile communication, when they touch their suckers together, that they know that it is the same species, maybe a different species, or maybe the same or opposite sex. So you can see here that here is a common octopus going over, extending its arm to another common inside the den. So we've got a reach.
Yeah.
And kind of a quick little octopus handshake. Decides like, nope, it may be the same sex and it doesn't want anything to do with it. And so in this one, you have a long arm. I'm going to pause it real quick. This long arm, again, this is kind of also illustrating or reinforcing how the long arm is out during the daytime. Common octopus is tucked away in its den. However, the long arm sees that, oh, there's an octopus over there. Let me go check it out. The long arm extends its arm to the common octopus, says, nope, that's not my species, and then keeps on foraging or leaves it alone. However, and so those I see more frequently. However, it's also been documented that the common octopus and the Atlantic longarm, you see they reach out, both of them reach their arms out for that handshake, touch the suckers, and they say, nope, I want nothing to do with you, and they go about their opposite ways. So they've also, developed during this time where there's a lot of octopuses there. How are we going to partition this area?
Okay, that's very cool.
Yeah, and so that's kind of how the octopuses are coexisting. And I know that you mentioned about the eels as well, and on other animals, how do they tie into this? And eels are actually a major predator of octopuses. So octopuses are trying to avoid eels or not get eaten by eels. And what the octopus, I call that 24-hour camera, the octopus monitoring gadget, I call it the OMG. And so the OMG was able to capture a lot of cool predation or potential predation attempts on the octopus. So I'm going to share again. So this also tells us information about the environment, what exactly is going on, and that there's multiple questions that we need to ask here. you know, the octopuses may be changing their activity times based
Hmm.
on each other, or predation pressures may be more, maybe a greater pressure than this octopus. So if there's a predator in the area, the octopus may actually become nocturnal. So there's all this information that we're gathering, or that I'm gathering as a scientist, that I need to take into consideration when I'm studying octopus behavior and how they're using or interacting with their environment. And so this was a really exciting
Yes.
footage to get. And so this is an octopus, common octopus in its den, and that's actually a diving bird, a double-crested cormorant. And so when people ask me what are the predators of an octopus, I pretty much tell them everything. An
Okay.
octopus has no shell. It's this soft-bodied ball of protein, a lot of protein. And so all animals, including ourselves, we look for octopuses as a nice protein source. And so I mentioned that octopuses have predators from above, like this diving cormorant coming down and takes a few swipes at the octopus.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then octopuses, you can see this common octopus is returning to its den, and that red light in the video, it's just a red LED light, so I can capture nighttime footage. You'll see it come on.
Okay. Yeah.
So right here you see that it's camouflage, but then goes to this threat startle display when this mutton snapper comes near.
Yeah.
So you
Okay.
see that. And so they have predators above, predators in the water column, benthic predators like stingrays. Again, we call that a threat startle display when the octopus tries to look big and scary when maybe a larger predator comes by to deter it.
Okay.
And this is to answer your question about eels. So I don't have a shark-tailed eel, but I do have this purple mouth eel that
Yep.
comes in when the octopus leaves and actually takes over the octopus's den. And
Okay.
so the eel kind of crawls inside and is potentially waiting for that octopus to come back. And so eels have these really hard jaws, and that's to get through crevices to eat their prey items, like an octopus might be hiding in a crevice. So you see this
Okay.
octopus is slowly creeping back in, definitely sees that there's an eel there, and is deciding, what exactly am I going to do about this? And nope, the octopus is out. And so you see that escape tactic, that jet propulsion, the octopus is able to escape extremely fast away
Yep.
from the eel.
Okay. That's very cool.
Yeah,
Now,
so a lot of cool information that you can gather from photos and videos that usually people don't think about, but it's very, very helpful.
okay. Now, what is the most intelligent thing that you've seen an octopus do at the bridge?
I would say that I've got a nice highlight video of their different types of camouflage tactics. And I'm blown away by the camouflage that these octopuses do. And it's just not changing the color of their skin. Like I mentioned before, it's the color of their skin they're changing. They're also changing the texture of their skin to maybe look like their environment or another animal, and also their body posture. And I'll talk about and mention in this video, when they change the body posture, it might be to mimic another animal. So this mimicry. And so the octopuses can do this in less than a second. And so it's really amazing. And so that's just a close-up, really quick, of the Atlantic longarm octopus. Nice camouflage with the environment. And you can see right here, they are out during the daytime. And like you just saw, they have many predators. So their camouflage has to be spot on. And so I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about what that octopus just did, since I mentioned mimicry. So this Atlantic long arm, what it will do is it will mimic the flounder or flatfish in the area. And scientists have discovered that they actually move at the same pace or do the same burst of swimming, flat swimming, that the flounder does. And so there is good support that this animal is using mimicry, flounder swimming, so it deters predators. I'm not a tasty octopus, but I'm a flatfish, and a flatfish has a really, wide structure. So it's hard for fish that might be gape limited to actually take a bite of that animal. So they may swim away and say, I don't want that flatfish, and try to look for another food item.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to play. There it is. So that's a
Yep.
nice one before I show. So you see that flounder mimicry. And what it does is it takes its long arms, all wraps them around the side to look like that flatfish, and does those swimming bursts just like the flatfish. There it goes. And this is another really fun behavior that I like, using that camouflage, the texture, and also posture. So this is known as masquerade, when it's looking like another object in its environment. And both species do this, and many of octopuses do this, if they are in an environment where there's not a lot of structure to hide around. So this isn't a coral reef. They can't bounce from coral head to camouflage. So they're using other tactics. How am I going to get from point A to point B, this sandy environment? I can look like a flatfish if I'm an Atlantic longarm, but the common octopus looks really goofy if it tries to look like a flatfish because it has those thicker, robust arms. So it uses what we call the moving rock trick, where it looks like a little rock and it moves across that sandy environment. So the name of the game is don't look like an octopus.
Yeah.
We're moving back to the Atlantic long arm, and it looks really weird at first. Here it is with its super long arms up in the air, but again, it's moving across this sandy environment. And if you look in the back and around it, you can see that there is some seagrass, some algae around. There will also be what are called mangrove propagules, or seedlings will
Yes.
be in the substrate here, and they'll be sticking straight up, and they'll look exactly like this brown mantle that the octopus has on. So it's using different masquerade techniques. That's very complex behavior that a smart invertebrate can only do, to know that, like, how am I going to avoid these predators?
Very cool.
And so here's another one. So last masquerade, where it's twirling its arms to look like algae in the area. So there will be a lot of floating algae. Sometimes the brown macroalgae, sargassum, will be floating in the area and will look like this. And so that's exactly what that octopus is doing.
Wow.
So that's some pretty intelligent behavior that I've seen at my study site. And also when this animal, specifically I've seen it in the common octopus, sometimes they'll live in the rock crevices and such. And I remember this one time there was this really small hole where I could see the octopus in a little opening. What it did is it took a piece of shell that was nearby and actually slid it across the hole like a little door. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. And of course, I wanted the octopus to do it again because I didn't have my camera ready the first time. But of course, it didn't. And so that's pretty intelligent behavior. And it's been shown in other octopuses, like the coconut octopus,
Yes.
for using the coconuts as tools. So tools have always been known to suggest a higher behaviors of intelligence.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that in these guys, but it would be really cool to visit the coconut octopus and see that.
Now, I want to shift gears a little bit. I have students who come to me and, I'd love to study marine biology, but they have issues, health concerns or something, that they think they won't be able to go out on a research vessel for months at a time. Explain how you were able to find a way to do marine biology that was close to shore and readily accessible to many people. And are there other places where that could be done?
Sure. Yes, you definitely have to. I'm only familiar with South Florida and my study area, but I definitely know there's more places accessible than just blue heron that you can do marine biology, depending on your research question and what field you want to go into. There is sea turtle research, and a lot of sea turtle research happens on the beach. They're trying to figure out the sex ratios and how many hatchlings are surviving, and so they're not spending a lot of time out on a research vessel. If you can't scuba dive or snorkel, you don't have to do that. So that is marine biology work that you can do on shore, and you're answering a really important questions for an endangered species. And also we have all this amazing technology. So just thinking about not being able to go on a research vessel, and I think that's just a small niche of marine biology. And we're starting to use this technology to our advantage to discover whole bunch of stuff. And I just keep thinking about aerial surveys. So people will use aerial surveys with planes to answer migration patterns. They'll also tag animals. And so you can do this on a boat only for a couple hours a day. It doesn't have to be on a research vessel. You can also use drones. So you can still stay like on the beach, and you can use a drone to do those surveys as well. And so I know a lot of shark biologists and manta ray researchers use these tools to help them, and not necessarily out to sea for days, weeks, or months at a time. So there's definitely possibilities for
Oh,
marine biology that you don't have to go on long excursions.
that's fabulous. That's wonderful. Um, okay, this is silly, but you are a researcher. Tell me what the plural I should use is for octopus.
So I and other octopus researchers will use octopuses. So a lot of people say octopi. However, octopuses or octopus comes from the Greek, not the Latin. So it takes the form es as a plural. So for the Greek, that would be octopodes. But if we go to the English language, the plural would be octopuses. So you can say octopuses, octopodes. We also say octopodes or octopods if you
Okay.
want, but you'll never hear me say or write octopi.
Okay, that's good. That's very good. Um, this is not something that I had written down as a question that we had talked about in advance, but can I tell you about the coolest thing I saw with an octopus at the bridge?
Yes.
I saw one go up to a cushion star. I got this on video and reach underneath it to see if it was prying open any clam or bivalve because it was trying to
Oh,
steal the meal.
yes. That sounds like an octopus.
Yes, yeah.
Sure. Very cool. Yeah, they are amazing animals to watch animal behavior. And I've dove the Blue Heron Bridge, I don't know how many times. I have logged over 500 hours of dive time there. Yeah, and just for my research that I did on the octopus coexistence, it was over 400 hours, and I've continued to dive and to work on octopus research, but I'm still blown away every time I dive there, what I'm going to see the octopuses do, their behaviors, and also the other animals that inhabit that area of the Lake Worth Lagoon. I
It,
love talking about octopuses, as you can tell. My research is also my passion, so it's nice to find a career that I'm passionate and I care about. So if your students have any questions, feel free to share my contact information if they want to follow along the research. Octogirl on Facebook or Instagram, or my FAU email you can share with them if they're interested on how to pursue a career in marine biology, internships, or graduate school, or so on. So happy to hear and
fabulous.
help out.
All right. Well, thank you very much.